Hello there, and welcome to Craft Your Life with Altenew. This is Jen Raza, and I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest. Let's say hello to the fabulous Amy Tangerine.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you, Amy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. We've never had you as a guest on our podcast, but I've been following what you've been doing for many years at this point. So it's really a joy to have you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yay. And for those of you listening, you may also be watching. We are doing some video content. So we'll see if this ends up being some snippets on social media or on YouTube. So we're excited to have now another format where you can reach us, not just through downloading the podcast for the audio, but also now you get to see the lovely Amy Tangerine's face.
It's a mess, but it's a creative mess. I think people can appreciate that, right? As creatives and artists yourselves, if you're listening in. We were joking before we started recording that we can usually hide behind our screens because this is the first video podcast you all are doing.
Yes, that is true.
I was also telling Jen that I make funny faces when I talk, so just ignore those.
Don't worry,
you
they're
can't see
used
when you're
to
just
me
listening.
doing it. When I do Facebook Live, all sorts of faces come out. So it's not totally surprise to them. I'm sure they're used to it. So I would love to start with you just having a chance to introduce yourself. I feel like a lot of people who have been around in the industry, a lot of crafters, may know your products or might know you as a personality. So why don't you introduce yourself, especially to maybe those of us or those people out there who are not familiar with Amy Tangerine?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been crafting all of my life. I don't remember a time where I wasn't in love with something like Hello Kitty or diaries or journals or markers and colored goodness of all kinds. I started scrapbooking in 2007 and then fell in love with the community of people, the creatives, and ended up doing 20 collections with American Crafts, which is probably how a lot of people know who I am through scrapbooking. And that's I would say, first love of putting your memories and documenting your life on paper, because we all deserve to craft a life we love. And I wrote a book with that title, Craft a Life You Love, infusing creativity, fun, and intention into your everyday. I also do all kinds of fun things now, and I live in Los Angeles, California. I've got 2 little kids who are just amazing, and they are the light of my life, and a husband who is very supportive of all my crazy ideas. And I'm in a studio space currently that needs desperate renovation, but I am making it work. And I am so excited to be chatting with you today.
It looks inspirational. I know you say it needs a lot of work, and we all, as creative types, tend to be messy, but I want to just jump in through the screen and get crafty with you in there. It looks fun.
That's very kind of you to say. I actually had a little perspective shift last week because I had a couple of people who have seen this background via Zoom meetings that we've had through the years, and they actually got to step through the doors personally themselves, and to see them look around and really just take it all in and really appreciate it for what it was and what has been created here gave me a slightly different shift, because all I can see is the big hole in the ceiling, which I've turned the camera so that you can't see it. But they were just enamored by the possibilities around all the colors, all the products. And I think that they really took it in. And it was so funny because I said, use my supplies, use my stickers, use my stamps. And they had to take a minute to soak it all in first. And I love that idea that creatives can inspire one another to see something new that they didn't see themselves originally, or maybe they lost sight of, right? Because that's the thing about working in the studio and making it work for, 9 years now. It wasn't a space that I designed. It happened to come with the house that we bought when I was pregnant with our first son. And it was a joy to have a separate space. I'm sure my husband appreciated that, it was separate from our house in the backyard. I could close the door. Nobody really had to come in here and tell me that I was making a mess. I knew I was making a mess, and I loved every second of it. And I think that the perspective shift was very humbling for me to just realize, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. People don't have to see the negative. Like I see it in my face right now when I look over there.
Now, do you ever have non-crafting friends come into your studio space, and what are their thoughts on it?
It's interesting because I think my friends all know that I am this obsessed crafter and obsessed. You know what? Obsessed is probably the wrong word, but I'm very enthusiastic about people loving something, right? And I think that it shows when my friends get to know me, and they probably already know that I keep a planner with me. I keep supplies with me at all times. So I don't think it really surprises them. Although I have to say, one of my dear friends was so sweet. She's known me since college, and she came in here and she's like, Amy, I love that you are an artist and creative. And she's also married to somebody who's super creative. And, but she's like, we need to do something about this. And she just came in here and sort of did the things because she saw it for what it was, right? And she's only a little bit sentimental, whereas I'm super sentimental about stuff. And she just got it done. And I could see that perspective of saying, hey, you know what? These are supplies. If you don't use them anymore, pass them along to somebody who will appreciate them. It's okay.
That's great. And I love
sometimes we feel guilty, don't we?
Oh, always. Absolutely. I think that's really common, especially among crafters, to feel that guilt. And you're right, we shouldn't.
Right. But I'm sure you're attached to Altenew's first, I guess, production line of stamps and whatever else you came out with first, and you have sort of this attachment to them. And I find it so interesting because even my own collections, let's say from the past, I don't really have an attachment to those things. I have more of an attachment to what it means when I see them, because so many people from around the world have used them, and they tell me the stories of, oh my gosh, I loved Plus One, and you were pregnant with Jack, and you came to Barcelona and you taught a class. And I was like, oh, you're right. I should be so happy about, those types of things. And it does bring me great joy, but doesn't mean I have to hold on to every single piece of paper.
Of course. Yeah.
Does it?
Well, it's individual. So if you want to hold on to every single piece of paper, I think you're absolutely able to do that. It's more than justified. But, everyone's going to be their own way. I love that you mentioned those earlier products, because as somebody who creates products and you do the same thing, there is an emotional attachment to everything. Where someone might see a finished product, I see hours of work behind the scenes coming up with the idea. I think of where I was when I was sketching out those ideas. I think of what my family was doing. I've mentioned on the podcast before that every vacation I've been on since Altenew has started, I bring my computer and I draw and sketch out ideas while I'm on vacation. And it's not because I'm working during my vacation, but sometimes you need to disconnect to get the most inspiration. And all of those memories come back when I see these products. So there's definitely a sentimental attachment to all of them.
I love that.
Now, you mentioned your product line that you did with American Crafts. And I think that's how I discovered you, because I remember going to the craft store and seeing your designs and thinking it was just a really fresh perspective. It wasn't like everything else that was there. There was just some kind of different feeling. And I don't think at the time I could have even placed what was different, but I just noticed all these ones that say Amy Tangerine, these are special ones.
Oh, that is so sweet. I think that's the hugest compliment, really, because I got into the industry not thinking anything other than I love using these products. I love connecting with the crafters who are making their pages and spending so much time on documenting their memories. But I did, when the opportunity came up with American Crafts, I did see sort of a gap between what I wanted to use and what I saw in the industry. And I just didn't see the things that we were able to create. And I love that because I feel like we pushed the envelope a little bit and we were just a little bit more, I don't even want to say on trend because that's not the right phrase, but we were sort of developing a style that was modern, yet accessible, yet relatable, yet bright. And this is one of those things that I remember doing with American Crafts is they were asking for my first collection. You know, typically we have a 6-color palette, you know, so you get to choose those colors. Well, I wanted to choose 12. And for some reason, it was an interesting experience working with their art director and their people and just pushing the envelope a little bit. And I pushed them, you know, out of their typical ways of doing things for years. 6 colors was the max. I pushed it. And we had, I think, 10 for that first collection. And that was just something that they had never done before. So innovation in any industry, sometimes you see it, but you don't know why it makes you feel a certain way. But I love that you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just always felt, even as the years went on, that you stayed very true to your style, like your unique perspective. And I think if I see a product or an illustration or even your handwriting, it's like I can spot it as yours, which is really difficult to do in art or in any creative industry, to really have such a voice that stays consistent over time. And I feel like yours has, which I definitely want to commend you on, because it's really nice to have that recognition of saying that's an Amy Tangerine stamp set, or that's an Amy Tangerine piece of paper, or whatever the product is.
I really appreciate that.
So you started off in scrapbooking, you said, correct? Do you still scrapbook a lot now, or have you done more planning and journaling? Like, where do you do like your own personal crafting for yourself?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I said that I started scrapbooking in 2007, which is true, but I had already had my own business for years. So Amy Tangerine started off as t-shirts. It actually started off before t-shirts as a production company for styling photo shoots in Atlanta. And then it evolved into me deciding that I wanted to crochet these arm warmers. And this was back in 2001. And I wore them into a store opening party. And the reason I made the arm warmers, to tell you the truth, was just for my own sake, so that I could have these things that would cover it would be warm, but it wouldn't be like gloves, so that I could pin the clothes on the models for photo shoots. And I wore them into a store opening party. The 3 sisters loved them. They said, you know, where did you get those? And I said, I made them. And they said, can we order some for the store? And so the next day I came back for a formal meeting and they said, what colors are available? And we sort of put together this order, which I delivered a week later with my mom because she helped me make them. And we delivered, I remember it so clearly, we delivered them on a Wednesday afternoon around 3:00, sold a pair out of the bag, and then ended up really just so enamored by the fact that we had sold one so fast, like a pair so fast. 3 hours later, they called me and they said, hey, you're going to think we're crazy, but we've sold out of half of them and we need more. And so it was one of those great feelings. So just to give you an idea, these hand crocheted arm warmers, I wholesaled for $37 a pair. They retailed for $78. So not cheap, but there was an appreciation for something that was handmade. I really feel like that boutique in particular, the owners sort of bought and inventoried their store that way, keeping in mind that there were people who just wanted something that was unique and different and made people feel special. So fast forward a couple weeks, and then Women's Wear Daily did an article on me. Some more boutiques ordered, word got out, and then it became this strange cycle. The early 2000s were this time where I can look back and everybody was always asking, like, what are you going to make next? What are you going to make next? Right? So In the fashion industry, when I ended up selling to 250 stores around the world and just had this wonderful experience with handcrafting these shirts. You get this idea in your head and you hand embroider this shirt, and then all of a sudden it's on Cindy Crawford in Glamour magazine, and it's like all these like little things that bring you to where you are. Mm-hmm. The through line is, what are you going to make next? I have been journaling ever since I can remember, right? I had those Hello Kitty journals that had the little lock and the key that you could definitely pry open, and all kinds of memories in planners. I mean, I started using not a day timer. It was called a Chandler's. I don't know if anybody is old enough to remember Chandler's planners, but I remember getting it with my parents. It was like a big deal because I feel like it was $20 or something really kind of expensive, but it was at that time. And it was one of those things where I would put stickers all over the cover. I would, write in pretty pens and write social studies homework or whatever I was having to do as a 12-year-old.
All those important tasks that the 12-year-old has.
I mean, homework and all kinds of things. But I remember thinking too that I just found so much joy in using these markers in my planners and using stickers that there was something to the act of documenting, an act of putting pen to paper. Obviously back then too, we didn't really there wasn't the internet when I was 12 years old. So we didn't do so much stuff as it relates to tech, at least not as much as we do now. And there was this beautiful realization when I was younger that it just brought me so much joy to play with paper and play with supplies.
It's so nice.
I don't know if I even answered the question.
So do you still
I love
scrapbooking or?
Yeah. So I also do scrapbooking. I don't do as much scrapbooking for myself any longer. I had to take a little break. And I also scrapbook for clients. Like I've scrapbooked for clients for years because what I found was at the time when I fell in love with scrapbooking, I could only scrapbook so much about my own life and my dogs. And so there was this urge inside of me where I had to create, but I didn't really want to pile up all these layouts just of me and my travels and my dogs. So I got a client who has 7 kids, and I scrapbooked for them and still continue to this day do that. And I do, by referral, but at one time back in about 2012, we were doing live events for scrapbooking. So we would, in that year, I believe we did like 37 events ranging from Dr. Phil's 60th birthday party to bat mitzvahs, sweet 16s, weddings, and we would live scrapbook for people. So I love that aspect, but right now I only maintain clients word of mouth, and it's really special. One of the last amazing albums that I made for somebody was a surprise 60th wedding anniversary present for somebody who has won several Academy Awards. So it was awesome because it was a surprise. And so we had to go into their house unknowing to them not knowing. A relative of theirs was the one who hired us to do the book. And they took us in there. And so we had to photograph the Academy Award, and we had to, do all these things kind of sneakily. And then they were presented with this amazing album of their 60th wedding anniversary. And it was just so beautiful. Really it was just such a beautiful tribute.
That's so nice. You're right. The Amy Tangerine umbrella kind of encompasses a lot, which is amazing.
And so much of it I can't really share. And, I think there's beauty in that too. So what people see is pretty much what they get. But at the end of the day, when I am thinking about the things that I want to do with my creative life or my, let's say, scrapbooking, for example, the season that I'm in is really going deep and enjoying the present moment and not so much scrapbooking them. That's not my priority right now, because I think that I have other ways of documenting life through video and my journals and my traveler's notebooks and my planner that tell the story that I hope to keep.
That's lovely. That's great. I don't do scrapbooking, and it's something that I always want to do, but I get very intimidated. I am through and through a card maker, and I'm very comfortable on a small format. And I know that there's a lot I can do with scrapbooking on a small format, that it was kind of like maybe an entryway into more of it. But I do feel like as I'm getting older, I'm going to want those memories documented in a creative way. So maybe I just have to keep pushing myself to actually do it.
Why don't you if you'd like a suggestion, I would recommend for card makers, especially since you're used to that smaller format, I would recommend a mini album or a traveler's notebook, and just treat it as you would similarly to a card, but just start adding photos and just build up from there. And don't even worry about making the full album and overthinking that, because I think that's very overwhelming for a lot of people. And that's why I would just suggest starting small and really, adding a few things here and there, and not overthinking that aspect of it. But
That's a great idea.
Include a photo. I mean, I think that to me, scrapbooking is one of the best hobbies that you can have until you let the guilt get to you, because that doesn't serve anybody.
Now, switching gears a little bit, I do have a question I'm personally curious about, but where did you get the name Amy Tangerine from?
So my name was Amy Tan until I got married. And then I made Tan my middle name, and then I have a new last name. But Tangerine came from living in Atlanta, and I wanted a magazine at first. And so in Atlanta, there's a bunch of Peachtree streets, and I was working at a restaurant as a hostess, and I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and I was like, oh yeah, I want a magazine. What should I call it? And he's like, oh, call it Tangerine. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be fun, because we were playing off of the peach fruit theme. And so it just stuck. And when I started my styling company, I decided, instead of Tangerine Productions, because there were a few that were already taken, and I didn't know about like copyright and trademarks and stuff. And so I just said, Amy Tangerine's not taken. I know that. So we just went with that.
That's great. I love it. It's easy to remember. It's connected to your name. It's perfect.
And the author, Amy Tan, right? The Joy Luck Club. So people can distinguish between the two.
That's great. Now, we have something coming up in the works right now with Amy Tangerine, and it's an Altenew with Amy Tangerine collaboration set, and that's coming out in June, I believe on the 12th. So I would love to hear a little bit about your inspiration for creating those designs.
What was so fun about that is that I was inspired to really take the ideas that were happening around that time and figure out how I wanted to get back into the industry, sort of, right? Because this is the first product that I have with a partner in scrapbooking or paper crafting or card making. And I really wanted to do what you all do best, and then also translate in the collaboration terms what you all were sort of missing, right? And that was so fun to work with Tasneem and say, hey, what do you like about my style? And what do you feel like could really punch up Altenew in a way that, you guys couldn't do on your own? And not that you couldn't do it on your own, but with an Amy Tangerine twist to it.
Of course. And like I said earlier, you have your signature styles. So it's great. And I don't want to give away too much, because this will, the collaboration is coming out after this podcast goes live. So I don't want to reveal all the secrets. But the sentiments feature your handwriting, and you've got these cute little whimsical elements that I think could be great for paper crafters, no matter which side of paper crafting you tend to lean, if it's more on the like bullet journaling, or if you're into scrapbooking, or if you're into card making or planning. They're versatile, so that I feel like it could reach a wide variety of crafters. And I think that is something where Altenew was lacking a little bit, was on the more memory keeping side, because I'm a card maker, Tasneem's a card maker. We design the majority of the products at Altenew, so we have a card making mindset when we're designing. So I'm excited to see how our customers respond to other ways of using paper crafting in their lives, not just card making.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what your artists do with it and what you all do with it, really, because it is so, I think, different in the way that I approach design in general, because I do believe that anybody can pick it up and use it for whatever they're working on, right? And because I don't approach it the same way you do from a card making perspective, I'm so curious to see where it goes.
Now, when was the first time you heard about Altenew?
I believe it was 2017. I was at CHA, which I think they call Creativation now. So it was one of those things where I passed by, and I think I had it on my radar because Jennifer McGuire brought it up a couple times, and I saw it in person, and I met Tasneem, I met some of the people on the team, and I fell in love with the products, the colors, the watercolors. You know what I fell in love with? Oh my gosh, I remember this so specifically. You all had in the booth a layered flower die situation that was on display. And it was artwork that looked like it must have taken 20 hours to make. And it was this framed, beautiful, layered floral piece created from cardstock.
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Yes, I was blown away. So I think that was 2017. It could have been 2018, but I think it was 2017. And it was gorgeous. And I was just so excited to have the watercolors that you all did in that white case. I don't know if you remember, like the set of 40. And it was so encouraging to see how you all had those make and takes. And I don't even remember why I think I stayed in your booth a little too long. I had my planner with me. Oh, that's what happened. I had my planner with me and I was testing out the watercolors.
I love that.
And then I was trying to figure out how to, do the layering, and I'm not really good with dyes. I think maybe I don't have the patience for them, but once I actually do it, I love the result. So the layering dyes that you all do are so good. So amazing.
Thank you so much. I think creativation is such a fun thing that, the companies can get together and, really appreciate one another in the industry. I feel like we need that sort of thing, but for everybody, because creativation, you have to be affiliated with the industry to attend. And post-COVID, I feel like we're lacking in in-person events. I know things are starting to open up again, and there's, more trade shows that are popping up, but I feel bad sometimes talking about these trade shows, and the general public listening, unfortunately, most likely doesn't have access to those. So I am glad we get to do these videos and podcasts and, just give some people at home a chance to connect and see into this world, because it really is a truly amazing industry where so many companies are very supportive of one another. They're open to collaborations. They want to see one another succeed. And it's really a great thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was so excited because when we started talking about the collaboration and working on the products together, Tasneem and Nabil were so encouraging. And I said, have you heard of Go Wild, which is a planner conference where, almost 2,000 people attend, and they were open to having a presence there. And I think the impact that Altenew had, these planner people just had no idea the amount of products you all make and what they could do with it in their planners. So I think it was really impactful. And I love that you all provided my workshop with the dual tip pens and the inks and the stamping. And I had so many people afterwards. You can check out the Go Wild vlog on my YouTube channel. And it is so funny because I had so many more people telling me that they had clear stamps and they had no idea how to use them. And they would just have them in their stash and not use them. And now they were inspired just because they were able to see the process and it was so easy to them and it wasn't intimidating. I think that's the key when you unlock something that allows somebody to say, oh, I can do that. I can make that for myself or somebody else. I can create it. There's such immense beauty in that.
There really is. Now, are there any other hobbies that interest you outside of the realm of paper crafting?
Gosh,
or crafting in general, outside of any of that.
Outside of crafting, that's so interesting because I'm a very particular crafter, so I have limited patience. I did just come back from another amazing conference called Craftcation Conference, which everybody should try to attend. There are about 500 people who go to that every year. It happens in April in Ventura, California. And that is something where they have dyeing workshops and they have woodworking workshops and they have all sewing stuff. I love sewing on paper. That's my first love, is sewing and embroidery and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I love playing on the Nintendo Switch. I don't know if that's a hobby, but
I'll count it. Sure.
I think I enjoy doing the things I enjoy. I really, really enjoy. And the things that I don't, I just do less and less of. I don't know if you've ever heard of Martha Beck, but years ago, she said something that was so profound, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's along the lines of, happiness is when you spend the time doing what you love with the people you love in the places you love. Simple as that.
That's great. I need to keep that in mind at all times. I feel like we all need that reminder from time to time.
Yeah, because we tend to overthink things, right?
Always.
I mean, I want a hobby where I can express myself and then also empower other people to realize that they can do things that light them up too. And it's interesting too, because I make these vision boards. I make these small vision boards, and some people think they're hokey, and I totally get it. But I taught a workshop at Craftcation, and it was a vision board on a wood board. And I really posed it to where people could go through their magazines and they can really think about what they want to invite into their lives. And I had 3 people come up to me at the end of the class, and they were like, I only signed up for this class because I actually just wanted to see if, what I was thinking was right about it, which is that vision boards are not for me. And, I just really wanted to take a workshop from you and prove to myself that I could just do it my own way. And instead, they fell in love with the process of redefining what it was to them. And I think that's what creativity does for people. And people sharing in those settings where they are in person, right? And they can feel the energy of the other people around them. And because it was so positive and nurturing, they were able to step out of their comfort zone and say, oh, well, I never thought vision boards were for me, but they are. And I'm going to continue making them in my own way.
I've never done one of those either. I feel like I need to just, set some time aside to do all of these things. Vision boards, journals, scrapbooking.
If it's on your list, if it's something that you want to do, I absolutely think that you deserve to carve out time to do it.
I know things get so busy so quickly, and then we really do need to stop and do things just purely for ourselves sometimes. So
totally. I feel inspired to dye my hair pink.
Do it.
My hair girl will not allow it because she just won't allow it, because I think that because my hair is so naturally dark, I would have to bleach it and then do it pink. But I love your hair.
Thank you so much.
I
do bleach it. I get it bleached about once a year because I'm not very good with maintenance or upkeep of things. So once a year she rebleaches it, and then I just put color conditioner in my hair.
It looks healthy and beautiful,
Thank
and
you.
It's one of my favorite colors.
Thank you so much. So now we're approaching always my favorite part of the podcast, which is a fun word association game. So I'm going to give you a random word from a random word generator. So I don't even know what these words are going to be. And you can say the first thing that comes to your mind, However, the disclaimer is it has to be about crafting. So, anyway, you can go on a tangent. You can have like one little tiny aspect about crafting. Whatever this conversation goes is great, but try to keep it on crafting. So let me know when you're ready for the first word.
I'm ready.
All right. The first word is headquarters.
Headquarters?
Yes. Headquarters. Although you're in the Amy Tangerine headquarters right now, right?
Yeah, but the first thing that came to mind was Altenew, because you all have such a powerhouse of amazing people who work with you from different parts,
Yes.
right? Like, you're not necessarily all in the same place. And yeah, headquarters, I think Altenew.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you. I'm surprised that we're the first ones that you thought of.
Totally.
Your next word is colorful. Oh, that's an easy one.
Rainbows?
Do you like working with rainbow colors?
I like working with all colors. I mean, rainbow is probably my first choice, but I have these on my desk.
Love it.
Colors.
Perfect. Your next word is fix.
I believe that there are no mistakes when it comes to creating, and the process of making a mistake, especially in paper crafting, the beautiful thing is that yes, you can make mistakes, but you can learn from them. And oftentimes you can just cover it up with a sticker.
Yeah, I always think having enamel dots nearby, stickers, something, little sequin.
Yes, exactly.
Paint,
I like that
splatter,
little bling
like
there.
you get an ink smudge somewhere, you add some splatter on top. It all looks very intentional.
I love it.
Okay, the next word is annual.
Planner. I think that, or annual review, but I think planners, because what I love about the way I memory keep in my planners is that I can literally go onto my shelf and pull out this little book that's, A5 sized and flip through any day and look at that, and the rush of memories come back.
Now, are you a January to December type planner, or like I'm a teacher, so I think a lot in terms of school year.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
I used to think in school year, and then when I started planning on paper once again, I sort of had this 6-month affair with planners, right? I would be really into them for 6 months and then I would be done with them. Then when I started designing my own planners, I would really stick with them for a whole year. So whether you do it academic year or you do it calendar year, I think that however you want to approach it, there's no wrong way. And even if you skip a few days, a few weeks, life happens, just pick up where you are, right? And don't let that stop you from continuing your hobby just because you have some gaps.
Yeah, that brings back into the don't feel the guilt thing. Skipping days is fine.
I'm big on that.
Yeah.
I'm big on that.
I think the same goes for exercise. Sometimes people miss a day or two and they feel guilty about it, and then they don't do it anymore because they missed one or two. And it's like, no, you could still get back into it.
Yes. You can.
All right, your final word, Amy. I'm so sorry. It's not my fault. It's the random generator's fault. Your final word is ballet.
Ballet slippers, because that is an OPI color. I think it's OPI. No, or is it Essie? It's a nail color. And it's so funny because remember how, I don't know if you remember, Christina Warner had on her YouTube channel where people would always ask her nail polish color.
Yep. And then she had a nail channel for a while. I don't know if she's still keeping that up, but there was a second YouTube for nails.
Yeah, so I don't know if that has anything to do with crafting, but maybe because you have to use your hands when it comes to actually scrapbooking, card making, and crafting.
No, I definitely think that nail polish and crafting and Christina Warner are all on topic. So you did great. I don't know what I would have said for ballet. So this has just been a delight. I know personally I've learned a lot more about you than I knew before today's conversation. And you're just a ray of sunshine. You are so fun to chat with. And I think that our listeners hopefully have also enjoyed getting to know more about Amy Tangerine.
Thank you so much, Jen. You're so sweet.
You're welcome. And to all the listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us today. And always remember to craft your life. Bye. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere you can find podcasts to keep up with every new episode. Shoot us an email at support@altenew.com with your feedback, and don't forget to craft your life.